Welcome to this episode of Tech Threads. I'm your host, Max Watson, and today we're talking about Buster and AI with Blake Rouse, who is the co-founder and CEO of Buster. Well, Blake, welcome to Tech Threads. Excited to have you on to talk about Buster and kind of what you've been doing.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we got some cool things, and this is actually funnily one of the episodes and topics that like everyone's requesting, like AI, and they know about you guys, know about Buster and what you guys are doing, and the success that you guys have had. So I know a lot of people are really excited about this. But before we jump into it, can you just explain who you are and like what Buster is?
Yeah. Yeah. So my name is Blake Rouse. I am the CEO and co-founder of Buster. Buster is an AI startup. We're building open source AI data analysts. And so we help data teams at top organizations augment themselves through these AI data analysts. We integrate pretty seamlessly with like what the data teams are already doing and how they're modeling their data, and then basically help them transform that into an AI agent so that everybody in their organization can chat with their data, generate reports, generate dashboards, and pull data all on their own. And then we have a lot of things happening under the hood and tools to kind of help the data team actually manage that, ensure it's reliable, implement guardrails and things like that.
Cool. Yeah. Where did Buster start out at? Because I know this
Yeah.
is was this a sandbox project that you had that kind of blew up, or like what were the beginnings of Buster?
Yeah. So Dallin is my co-founder, and we both were in the sandbox program at BYU. We originally started working on a completely different idea called leftovers. And it was like a restaurant to consumer marketplace where they just like flash sale their leftover food at the end of the day. And so if you've heard of like Too Good to Go, it was like the concept was like a competitor to that essentially. So we did that for like 5 months and then ended up winding that business down, sold it, and kind of like moved on. And Dallin and I were really interested in the idea of AI agents being able to generate SQL. The idea of self-serve analytics has been around for a long time. It's an incredibly competitive space. But we were really excited kind of about the opportunity to enhance data engineering workflows and also enhance the workflows of a business operator to just access data better. And so we kind of had some experiences with accessing data when we were working on our original startup. And then as soon as we sold off that other startup, Dallin and I started working on Buster.
Wow. Yeah. What have you seen as you've been kind of working in this like AI agentic, data analysis kind of field? What are like the current trends that you're seeing, or what have you guys been doing and seeing a lot of success in that, maybe people don't know about?
Yeah, I think everybody is, you know, if it is your data and you're using this for like real world applications, right? You have to have some level of trust and transparency. You have to understand what the model's doing. And so there's a lot of things trending around like creating transparency in AI products, right? And so we try to do that and create a lot of transparency. I think there's a huge shift towards agents and actually building more and more recursive like tooling that can actually like it's a literal agent that has access to tools and can go out and make its own decisions and create things for you instead of these rigid kind of pipelines and workflows that people have been building over the past couple of years because the models just weren't good enough to actually just let it go wild, give it tools, let it make educated decisions. And then when we first started, it was very much a very rigid workflow pipeline of prompt chaining and things to get things to happen in a certain way. And we're slowly moving things more and more towards recursive agents. And so, like the main product that we sell and that business users are using is like a 100% recursive agent with access to a bunch of tools, and the architecture is still complex, but it just makes the agent itself way more flexible and able to do way more robust things.
Yeah, how are you adding that transparency that you talked about earlier? Because I know we were talking with, Jacob Draper, who's on one of our other episodes, and he works like with analytics. I'm not sure if you know him with Adobe, and he was talking about how it's so hard. Like one of the biggest problems with AI right now is you sometimes don't know what they're going to spit out. Like sometimes it'll say
Yeah.
something and like hallucinate, and I'm sure that's an issue you guys work with like every day. How do you add that transparency, and how is that helping build trust with kind of the end
So
users?
I think the first part is just having like ruthless evals in the first place. And so it all starts with evals. I think there's a lot of people that like say that they have great taste and like that's why their AI products are great. And I think that what's actually happening at like the best AI products is behind the scenes. They're investing incredible amounts of resources into evals. And so the first part is literally just building something that you have the data to know it's going to be a reliable experience to a certain degree, and people are going to be able to trust it. But even still, like you still have to create a lot of transparency. And so a great example is like if you're using any kind of um, a good example is to compare like Grok to ChatGPT. Like
Mhm.
Grok lets you see the exact reasoning that it's going through in its reasoning thoughts, right? And so you can actually click in and
Mhm.
see like this is exactly what Grok thought through. This is why it's going down this path. Whereas with ChatGPT, they actually hide the thoughts and the reasoning, and they're sending you like an AI generated summary that you can't see as granularly what it's actually doing. Um, and so I think a lot of people will basically build these AI products and they'll set them up just with like REST APIs. And it's basically you send in a request and you get back an output and you have no clue what happened between point A and point B. Um, the best AI products that we see and what we're trying to do is like it's all WebSockets that are constantly listening and trying to see what's actually happening and trying to present that information to the user in the most transparent way possible. So the user should be able to see like the exact thought process the model's going through, the exact tools that it's using, the exact like structure of the flow that it went through. And then we can do a lot of different things around like generating confidence scores, doing things like explaining if they don't know SQL, explaining what the SQL is and how the data is being filtered. And so it's all about like enriching the experience with lots of information and metadata that can be generated by an LLM, but then also creating transparency in like the exact process that it went through and not hiding any information. And if you can show them that in real time, it's really valuable.
Right. And that makes total sense. I mean, you can see kind of the backbones of what it's pulling from. And I'm sure, like we were talking about the other day, like if you're an expert, you can see those and be like, oh, that doesn't look right. Or like, that looks perfect. Like, this is the right process that I would go through. And it's just like making the work a
Totally.
lot faster. I mean, with you guys have grown so fast. How have you like grown your product and gotten that visibility that you have now and like, achieved all this funding that you guys have received?
Yeah. Yeah. We came out of BYU and I dropped out of BYU. I was a junior and didn't actually finish school. Dallin graduated with his master's and turned down some pretty sweet job offers, and we were like all in. And at the time, we had no funding, and so we went out and we tried to fundraise, and basically everyone told us no. And so we were like, okay, well, we're just going to keep going. We were able to raise like $100,000, and that was enough to hire our first founding engineer to hop on and join the team with us. And then we spent about 6 months building and continuing to just work closely with customers. And then we got into YC. And YC was like super high value. We came out of YC and we were able to raise our seed round. And YC helps in so many ways, but one of the ways is like they just legitimize you instantly. You get a huge influx of inbound interest from investors. The fundraising process is like still hard, but it's definitely a signal to investors to be interested in you and take you seriously. And so that helped a lot.
Yeah, can you explain about YC? Because I know some people have heard about it and they like see the name and it's kind of like that clout thing. They're like, oh my gosh, it's YC backed. Can you explain what YC is and kind of what like benefits you guys got or like what you kind
Yeah,
of your experience was with YC?
yeah. YC is a pretty well known accelerator based out of San Francisco. Um, they funded top companies like DoorDash and Stripe, some local Utah ones that people might be interested, or like they funded Podium and Weave, and so they've invested in a lot of different big companies that have been really successful. Their whole bet is on founding team, and so they'll ask you in their interview process, they'll ask you all sorts of different questions about product and traction and customers and whatever. And like those things matter, but all they're trying to actually do in the interview is not necessarily evaluate like, do you have good customers or are you like whatever like that. They're actually just trying to evaluate like, are you a sophisticated founder making really high IQ decisions? And so their entire bet and their entire thesis is on founders. They really don't care about if your idea is that good or that bad. It's all about backing really, really great founders. And so they have tricks and tactics to try and identify if you are a great founder. But that kind of makes them unique. Like everybody wants to say they're like a founder first investor at the pre-seed and seed stage. And that's true to an extent, but I think like YC actually really embodies that. And then once they fund you, they just like go to bat for you always. So they will go to the nines to help you fundraise, to help you land customers. Um, they really help you focus on things from like a first principles perspective. They've seen a lot. They fund hundreds of startups a year. And so their advice is really good and really tailored to you. You become really close and tight knit with your main partner that funds you. And so they learn your business and your customers really, really intricately and are able to give you like super customized advice and kind of hop into a war room scenario with you every week and just kind of like crank through the biggest problem that you're facing. And so there's a lot of value there. There's a lot of value in deals. There's a lot of value in the community. And so they do a lot of things. And then I think a big value add is they help you fundraise as well.
Right. Yeah. Just have that cloud, have that mentor, I'm sure, especially with like so many successful startups and then like so many startups just in general. I'm sure the advice they have is just like very war, like, yeah, like you said, very practical, very tested. And I'm sure it helps a
Totally.
lot. What do you see like for Buster growing? Have you guys hit any like roadblocks when it comes to AI or difficulties with AI that you think are kind of inhibiting things that might get, fixed in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I think things. I mean, we started working on Buster and we were using like the Da Vinci models. This is like, years ago now, way before the models are capable of doing what they are now. Um, and with every new model, there's things that we can do better. And we're constantly like, there's certain things in our architecture that we have to do that if the model was actually like super, super, super intelligent, we wouldn't even need to do. So like a good example is like I have some eval data sets that I run and I'll run test cases across like I don't know, 1,200 different tests. And it'll come back and 99.5% of the time it'll nail what I want it to do. But then like a half percent of the time, it will literally just respond and say like, "Hey, I got you this report. It shows you that you did $30 in sales last month." And it literally didn't even query the database. It didn't write a SQL statement. It's literally just completely hallucinating, right? And so that happens like this half percent of a time. And we have things in place in production to check that and to make sure that like that isn't actually getting returned to a user. Um, but like the point is that it still happens, and then we have to do things in our architecture to like run validation steps over that and ensure that it didn't hallucinate. We have to do things where like we actually have it plan out its workflow and it's actually updating in like a to-do file the exact things that it's done to track where it is in its workflow. And like if it was truly like a super intelligent agent, it wouldn't need like this checklist thing to really track its workflow. It would just be able to make accurate decisions as it goes and not hallucinate. And so there's a lot of things that we do in our architecture, like shifting system prompts here and tweaking this here and adding like guardrails here that like really reinforce a lot of the things that it will mess up on or not do correctly. And with every new release, it becomes easier and easier to ship new features, to not have to run as many tests to find those things. Or you run a test and you have high confidence in something that you did not have high confidence in before. And you had to invest a ton of time in to ensure that it is a reliable feature that you can actually put in production.
Yeah. Do you think that reliability is just going to continue to increase as like models get more trained? Or is that something kind of like what you've mentioned, like you're going to, and companies and PMs out there are going to have to, build in separate, I guess, like functionality to like check those? Like, what
Yeah.
is your take on that?
Yeah, I think that companies I think I think a couple things. So I think there's a lot of varying degrees of how reliable something needs to be, right? Like um, sometimes if something is just helping you in your like code is a really good example. Like if I'm just a software engineer and I'm using Cursor, I have a pretty good level of risk tolerance because I'm going to review it. I really understand what's happening under the hood. I understand my code base and my repo. And so I'm able to see what it did and quickly identify if it's right or wrong. I can then like send up a PR and have Greptile, which is like an AI PR reviewer, actually review it and give me things. And so, like, there's like a pretty low bar, in my opinion, for a lot of the coding tools because software engineers are really good at auditing it and knowing what's going on, and
Mhm.
it's creating enough ROI and value that they're okay with that low bar of reliability. Whereas in a tool like Buster, like if you are in the C-suite and you are trying to make a decision about an earnings report and what you're going to put in that earnings report, you need to be 100% confident that what you're putting in an earnings report is correct, right? And so
Mhm.
there's varying degrees of the products that you're building as a product manager and like how much time you need to invest in actually building in guardrails. I do think that things will become more reliable over time and you'll be less concerned about certain aspects. Um, but like there will always be certain types of products that will have to have lots of guardrails and functionality in place to ensure that what's actually happening is correct. And then another like caveat to that is like sometimes the bar for like being correct 100% of the time doesn't really exist if you can just create a lot of transparency. So if I can 10x your
Mm.
workflow and make you 10x better at something or help you do something 10x better, even if it only works 75% of the time, um, it still creates a ton of value for you. And you're okay with that if you have the transparency to see exactly what happened and audit that and just redo the prompt or start over or whatever it might be. And so there's a lot of gray area around a lot of those things.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I can totally see where the experts, and we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago with some other guests that we had on, of just like having that transparency really helps, especially when you're an expert and kind of like getting people to become more
Totally.
experts. But I'm sure like with Buster, like you said, like you can AI can help them so much, but then it comes to a point where you have to know like the underlying data sets, the pipelines, you kind of what's feeding
Totally.
into it. Um, but like, what have you? I mean, like for Buster, what's the future for Buster right now? What are your guys' like biggest, goals, or where are you guys trying to head?
Yeah. Yeah. We're super focused on working with really high quality customers. So we get a huge influx of inbound leads every time we post or do anything. Everybody wants better access to their data. And so I feel like we've gotten really good at marketing that. And so Buster's still like in a private beta state where we're really selective with who we work with. And we're super focused on working with like high quality data teams at high quality companies that actually care about their data integrity, that actually believe in what we're doing. And so when we find a data team that we're really aligned with, Buster works really well for them. And our entire focus right now is continuing to enhance their workflow and enhance the reliability of the product. It's an AI product, and so that is like a constant work in progress. And we're constantly changing things, updating things, finding new edge cases and things to make Buster more and more reliable. And the goal is basically to get to the point where, yeah, like this is so reliable, and we have so many systems in place and things set up that like anybody could come in and actually start from nothing. They could ETL their data into a warehouse. They could model it really quickly using AI tooling, and then they could actually, like, in a couple hours, have this AI agent that knows their data and can communicate that to a non-technical user. And the non-technical user is going to have a reliable experience and actually be able to interpret a lot of what the data means, even if they don't understand the underlying models super well. And so those types of things are really like focus on semantics. It's really really nuanced, and so it's a constant investment of like working really closely with these early customers, nailing product, and like that is our entire focus right now is being selective with who we let into our beta and like building a really tight knit relationship with them. We love working with companies in Utah because we'll literally go in office and like sit down with their lead data engineer or head of data or whatever it is, and we'll go through chats that their users are having in Buster and kind of look at it and say like, what was expected here? What wasn't expected here? Like, how can we improve this specific aspect? Is this a problem with your underlying data model? Is this something that we can catch using like an AI to eval what's actually happening? And so we get more and more earned insights every single day by working with these customers, and they just compound over time. And it's getting closer and closer to the point where like it's becoming such a compelling product that it's going to sell itself. And so that's our entire focus right now. It's very product focused, not super growth focused. When an inbound lead comes in that is a super qualified company, we engage them like really proactively, and we'll fly out to meet with them, whatever it takes, if they are like a really qualified, great early customer.
Right. And I know that you guys are open source as well. How is that
Yeah.
play? Like what advantages does that have for you guys, especially in these early development phases?
Yeah, it makes a big difference. Like, I won't name names, but there are companies right now that are talking to us that would not be talking to us if we weren't open source. And we're
Mm.
talking like $10 billion plus companies. And they'll literally tell us things like, we basically couldn't do a pilot with other solutions because they're closed source and like we would have to pay for like this pilot agreement or whatever it might be. And with Buster, we can literally spin it up locally and test it and come in and like have like a stand up and show it to people and get buy-in. And then they're like, they're in, they're excited, they
Mhm.
want to buy. And so it built a ton of confidence. Um, I really like how open we can be about what we're building in our architecture. Like I think so many companies are very focused on like the IP that they have in their prompts or in their architecture. And I frankly think that most of it is BS. I think that user adherence, like the models will get better and better at user adherence over time. And so your prompts will become less and less valuable. Like right now, you have to tell the LLM, like, don't do this thing or I'm going to die, right? The user's going to die. And you say all these crazy things to get it to do what you want. And you're like, you're very like meticulous about like little details here and there. The models are getting better and better at user adherence and just doing exactly what you tell them to. And so in the future, I don't think your prompt is going to be that much IP. I don't think there's much IP to prompts at all. And so um, I think being open about that is really refreshing to a lot of people. I like being able to sit down with an engineer and literally say, like, this is exactly how our architecture works. You can look at it in the repo. We have a bunch of docs about how it works, and like you can see how we've built it. And it just creates tons of transparency and trust with
Mhm.
customers. And then technical people just love the idea of open source products, and we do too. And so we always wanted to be open source. We always wanted to build a product that was open. And so that has kind of been like a key pillar that we wanted to really lean into for a while.
Yeah, and I'm sure the trust, especially, I know with products, a lot of companies, like internally, like I'm a software engineer right now, and we will evaluate different products. And a lot of the times it's like, how much can we actually trust these? Like, we're going to spend millions of dollars and we're going to like uproot everything that we've been doing, stop our production
Totally,
and everything. And we got to trust that this, like the guy who's selling it to me, or like this product's actually going to work. And so I'm
totally,
sure that helps out, tremendously with
totally,
engineers who can see the underlyings of it and be like, oh yeah, I trust these guys, even though they're like,
totally.
they're starting up and they still have
And
updates,
you,
but like, yeah,
yeah, and you can just like tell a CISO, like if they have a question, it's like you can literally go to the GitHub repo and just like look at the code. Like,
it's
like
crazy.
it's just cool to be able to say that to someone. And so yeah, I think it's really played in our favor and something that we always wanted to do.
Yeah. As we're kind of coming up on the end, is there anything else you want to share about Buster or AI that you think would be beneficial for those out there listening?
Yeah, I think yeah, I kind of say this over and over again, but a lot of building these products comes down to like one, staying up with it with what is currently working, like what is the current best practice, and that changes on a weekly basis. And so you kind of have to be willing to rip out everything that you've done and start over if something else comes out and is exponentially better. And so we have done that
Mhm.
multiple times, and that's pretty painful to do. Um, but I think that puts startups in a really compelling position. Like the best practice is constantly changing, and there's a ton of innovators' dilemma happening in the market right now. And so it's a really interesting time to be able to be building new AI products and shipping these products because of that. And then the other thing that I say over and over again is just evals. It is all about evals. It's about having really robust tests in place um, across lots of different edge cases and being able to not only like build out your tests and like run them all at once and then make a change and then run them again, but also see like what did that affect and have really granular evals in place so that you can actually see like we made this change and it fixed what we were trying to fix, but it broke three other things. And if you can just run your tests and know that, you are able to iterate faster than basically everybody else in the market. Most people have not figured out how to do that yet. And so if you can actually figure out how to build really robust evals and implement those on like the POCs that you're building and then actually be monitoring them and running them on production applications as well, you are just way ahead of everybody else in your industry or market. All of your competitors, I guarantee it. And your products will be way more reliable, and you will hear customers tell you things like, "This just works." Like they'll say, "This just works," and other things don't. Um, and that is the key. It's really hard from a flashy marketing video to know if an AI product's actually going to be good or not. You just can't know. And so um, you like you already see brands that are building that reputation as the brand that just works. What they're doing is they're running rigorous evals behind the scenes to make sure that it works.
Right. And I think that's just such a cool thing that you have going for Buster. That's like really intriguing and a lot of people like. But Blake, I just want to thank you for coming on, sharing your expertise, talking about Buster. Everyone out there, if you haven't heard of Buster or you haven't seen Buster, I'm going to tag you guys in this post and also kind of your website so people can kind of see it more.
Cool.
But Blake, thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, thanks, Max. Appreciate it.